Dolmens in the world are the most ancient structures being built about 11,000–12,000 years ago. They are the places where people called on the higher powers, where people meditated, where they could obtain the power from the universe, from the earth. Dolmens were built on the power places, and rituals were carried out on them too. Interestingly, dolmens have unconventional electrical activity, having electrical fields around the dolmens, including magnetic fields. They are permanently changing. Dolmens come in a few types. The most well-known dolmens are tables, a huge stone set on 4 pillars, or just 3 pillars. But there are some dolmens decorated like sanctuaries set in the stones in the form of flower petals. Or there are some dolmens built in rocks with holes, in order to let the sun and key stars, when they rise, to get into these holes during some important dates, such as solstice, equinox. Dolmens were built of the stones having unusual characteristics, physical features, such as magnetic field, electrical field, other frequency, or gravity vector curved in these places, or some other characteristics of these stones. The energy is abnormal in all such structures. First of all, they sit on the power places, or so-called energy centers, meaning that the power stream passes under the ground. We're on Boyko Island in Bohuslav district, near the village of Verteba, next to the dolmen-shaped structure that is considered by a lot of researchers to be the ancient dolmen. The dolmen even before the Vedic period. Found 5 years ago, it became famous. At first it was found by scientist expeditions. And at that moment, people had already started visiting that place, meditating there, making wishes, and obtaining things they wished about. It is definitely ancient dolmen. It is thought that there are a lot of such dolmens in Bohuslav district. They are built of stones, and stones are seen to be designed as the structures. And if this exact dolmen is in Bohuslav district, so according to the researchers' consideration, there are other dolmens that must be researched. It is the heritage of those civilizations of our ancestors living on our Earth. Verteba Cave, we're near to, is a quite unique cave, because among those 50 caves situated in Borchchiv district, it is the only cave used by Trypillians. In general, Trypillians had never used caves. Among well-known caves, it is the only cave used by tribes of Trypillian culture. In the caves we can see the clay ground that is quite similar with the floor of those Trypillian houses. Perhaps they were altars, as we can notice, that they are big pits artificially dug out of yellow clay, and they don't look like simple household pits, because of strange structure inside, made with layers: ash layer, clay layer, ash layer, clay layer, and such layer by layer, till the pit surface. And of course, we found some cultural things in the ash, meaning a lot of various amulets, wolf's teeth of deer with a little star, different types of necklaces. In addition, we found flint knives, the most qualitative knives made of Violin flint, meaning foreign flint that simply for no reason couldn't get into the pit. Also, there are a lot of tar figures, terracotta figures and female figures. Figures are considered to be the image of the goddess people believed in, for example, the goddess of earth, the goddess of fertility, that were made as they imagined. And exactly such figures we find in those cultural pits. By 2004, those stairs to the cave hadn't existed at all. As it's said that everything here was abandoned, the cave was opened. It is more than 300 square meters now. It took us 3 years already to clean up this area. Nevertheless, up to this stone, which you can see almost the half of it, was just ground. If to look at the side stairs, you can see the level of black soil bedding in this walking part. Quite understandable that this black soil got into the cave with the rainwater. When we started to dig it up, bizarre phenomenon opens up. The lumen under the stone opens up. It is understandable that the stone must be set on something. It isn't hung in the air. And then the question is arising that the ground must be very carefully taken out from the stone. And here is a very curious picture. When we completely cleaned up the stone, we saw that there was a huge stone plate below than those 3 stones, and on the top this huge stone. Cubic meter of the soil, 2 tons and 3 kilograms on average. The full stone is definitely above 5–6 tons. The question is, how is it standing still on 3 stone pillars? Yes, bizarre phenomenon happens in the natural world. Happenstances can occur. It means that we imagined it to be happenstance for 99.9%. But when we carefully examined it all, then interesting facts are being discovered. 2 stones under the stone didn't appear to be from cave, meaning that there are 2 calcite stones, 2 calcified stones which are not typical for the cave. It is not cave stone. It is brought here about 3 kilometers from the river. There is some kind of sandstone at just absolutely other geological period. Moreover, such dolmens are not typical for Trypillian culture. Trypillian didn't deal with those stuff. It's really an unique case. That's why there is a thought that maybe somebody after the Trypillian period was here and created something here, but for what? Nowadays, it's still a riddle. Podil Tovtrys are situated on the territory of Khmelnytsky and Ternopil regions. They are very beautiful mountains, quite ancient ones, and it is in them the dolmen-shaped structures are discovered. Previously, the researchers have said that they are dolmens as they are meeting some characteristics of dolmens. But for confirming it must be held the last examination. One of such dolmens is behind my back. It is said to be the most wonderful Tovtra among all Tovtra of Ukraine, called high stones. Dolmens have holes where the sun gets into exactly during the day of winter solstice. Besides, rocks and stones situated around it show us astronomical objects, for example, the rising of Sirius, the belt of Orion, etc. Cave complex in Monastyrka looks like as if average person imagines a pagan sanctuary, and in lots of famous guidebooks it is showed exactly like a pagan sanctuary. We see in front of us an interesting altar or a dolmen. There are some rough columns behind, made of stones, and the cave monastery itself. In fact, it's not so ancient. Archaeological researches were conducted here, and ceramics of the 16th century, generally 17th century, was the most ancient one found here. It was that time when the monastery was developing, Vasilyan Monastery. This dolmen, or so-called altar, wasn't of local origin either. It is brought here from somewhere else. About what there is a note written from that site and dedicated to the monks carrying this stone. My version is that it's for sure authentic pagan altar or dolmen. By virtue of tradition, local inhabitants came to it to pray, to carry out some rituals, but the monks were really bothered by it, saying that we are Christians here, and they are praying to some kind of pagan stone. Then this altar was carried from unknown place, but somewhere from this neighborhood to the monastery. These columns are archaic, and for the first sight, look quite ancient. They're actually not. They appeared in the end of the 19th century, meaning that they are quite young. The 19th century is almost our period of time. Approximate time is known when the stone was carried from one place to another. When archaeologists were carrying out an archaeological excavation, they found sopric salts near each of the three columns, and it was the middle of the 17th century. In fact, somewhere at the time, in 1660s or 70s, this altar appeared near the monastery. The altar is considered to be one of the ancient spiritual cultures, setting it and praying to the higher power near to it. This altar was found by Christian monks, Vasilyans, and brought it as considered to their monastery. They set it in their monastery because Christian monks were also bringing awareness. They knew that all ancient objects were culture, as well as plenty of Christian objects attached to the astronomic phenomena. It means that our ancestors always respected the laws of the universe, whatever religion they practiced. That's why lots of religions have the same sanctuaries, the same forms of temples, the same praying places. So they correctly said this plate brought from another place. By the way, here is the note written in ancient Slavic, saying that this plate was brought from another place. This plate is set in astronomically correct position. If to look at this plate, you can see pictured stars of the Great Bear on it. When in the morning, during the sunrise, on the day of winter solstice, the Great Bear is still seeing the stars in the sky, are being precisely reflected by the stars on this altar. Astronomers conducted researches about it, and there are lots of scientific publications. It's definitely full match like a projection of the Great Bear from the sky to the Earth. It's perfect and detailed match from millimeter to millimeter. That's why this plate connected with the universe. It's very ancient and has the information of ancient cultures. It was even admitted by Christians, Vasilyans. We see here the altar in the form of cross, but it's not Christian. It's Vedic, equilateral cross denoting the sun for ancient people. The cross with equal sizes in the sun cross of the sky fire. The plate shows its connection with the sky fire, the sun power. That's why the prayers were read near it on the day of the winter solstice, when the biggest night is over and the new sun rises, and the new year starts, new sun cycle. Now we're in the sacred place fully taken after by its structure the famous sanctuary in Busha. What do we have? There is a rock massif, above from which the smaller rocks split off and slid down the hill. Here is a specific gap. If in Busha we see a bas-relief, so here we see a burden for some kind of sacred figure. And according to that, it's clear that before this gap, where now in has been shut down. Here was some kind of little chapel, and maybe it's even pre-Christian. It could be some kind of sanctuary. Interestingly, on the top of this rock, we're now climbing on, is very curious dolmen-shaped formation. It means that it was the one complex, meaning that there is some kind of dolmen-shaped formation above, and here is some kind of sanctuary below. It's difficult to say what exact century it is. It could be pre-Christian or could be actually of the 17th, 18th century, when here in such places hermits lived. It's quite interesting sacred structure, ancient one being a part of one complex with those rock formations we saw below, with burden for a sacred figure, meaning that is situated above on the highest point of local ridge. When the leaves fall down, this point is seen very well to be the highest one of the rock ridge. Most caves of the same structure, where hermits lived, are characterized to be made by hands and cut out of rocks. We saw such caves. For example, in Pushcha of a hermit, near the town of Zvenigorod. But it is not cut out, as you can see, meaning it is likely to be built. It means there were some stones, and some more megalithic stones were put on them above. So it is likely to be in the Neolithic period. Maybe bronze one. But how this scared structure was used just before the 17th, 18th century, when Anchored hermits were living here, meaning that here could be a house, they prayed below, and it was the one complex.